Hi, I'm Faith Haney with the Archaeology Channel. Did you know that TAC is a nonprofit website that depends on membership support, much like a public television station? If you'd like to back this unique service, please click the membership link on this page, after you watch the video, of course. Thank you.
Support for Footsteps into the World Beneath was provided by the Michael Phelan Family Foundation, Granger Contracting, and Triptone.com. From the mastodon-hunting Paleo-Indians to the mound-building Mississippians, archaeologists in the Midwest have uncovered 12,000 years of prehistoric activity. Cultural material including ceramics, stone tools, and rock art provide us with brief glimpses into the lives of these people long past. The picture remains blurry, hidden in the fog of time. However, every great while, a discovery comes along that offers a moment of clarity. A cave in the very heart of North America is turning out to be a veritable time capsule for archaeologists.
Hello. Off-road!
How did it feel?
That was great.
600 years ago, humans, black bear, and mountain lions were using a cave in present-day Missouri. Then their entrance collapsed, creating a natural time capsule. More recently, a small hole opened in the cave roof, presenting archaeologists with an opportunity of a lifetime.
It's tight now.
One morning he woke up and there was a hole in the field, and he called a couple of cavers that he knew in the area, Tom Dunham and Steve Ortner. They came down and checked out the cave and found a good part of the cave, including some prehistoric human footprints, bear tracks, and torch remains.
What were these people doing, venturing into the darkness, knowing the cave was used by bear and mountain lion? Even though 600 years have passed, the scene below has been incredibly well preserved. Archaeologists, like forensic investigators, are carefully examining evidence in search of an answer to that very question.
Like, what was going on in here? What were they thinking? Why here? Why did they go? What was the reason to go this far in? And were they just caving, or was it something they were going in for, or was it all just ritual? And it amazes me. You know, that's a lot of work. And as you can see, it takes a lot of safety just for us to go in.
The precise location of this very important cave is a closely guarded secret. Since the day of its discovery, access has been limited solely to experienced cavers and archaeologists for the purpose of preservation and research. Therefore, scientists are confident the evidence they encounter was left by prehistoric visitors to the cave. Caver John Beard is exploring and mapping the cave system. Many unexplored passages remain. John and his fellow cavers are helping to guide a team of archaeologists who are working to better understand what was going on here so long ago.
It's a rare thing to find a prehistoric human footprint in a cave. Right now there are a little more than half a dozen in the United States that have been documented out of 100,000 caves. There are approximately 25 prehistoric human footprints that have been mapped thus far. We expect to find more.
It's rare to find ancient human footprints in a cave, but there's more down there than just footprints. Add torch marks, rock art depicting powerful spirits, throw in bear prints and denning beds and mountain lion prints, with everything incredibly well preserved, and you have an archaeological gold mine. Cavers and archaeologists must rappel 60 feet through the darkness to enter the cave. However, to solve this mystery, let's begin where the ancient humans would have entered the cave, the collapsed entrance.
We believe this is the entrance people prehistorically used to access the cave. Now, obviously no longer can you gain access through this location. Right now, we have people down below, right under us right now, exploring the cave, and they have gotten down there through the current entrance.
This is the paleo entrance passage. This is where cavers determined, even by just intuition, that this was the highest point in the cave, probably the closest part of the cave to the surface. And there's plenty of evidence to suggest that this is, in fact, very close to the entrance. We're not sure when the paleo entrance, as we call it, filled in, but at some point it did, and the cave was sealed, basically, to disturbance. Just imagine what it would be like to try to find your way out.
Just inside the paleo entrance, the ancient visitors would have enjoyed ample light shining in from the outside. However, evidence of the prehistoric activity suggests people ventured into the deep recesses of the cave. With each step, the visitors would have progressed from twilight to what cavers refer to as the dark zone. From that point on, if their light source failed, they'd be lost in complete darkness.
The torch marks that you find through much of the cave were probably used to mark their way through the cave, much as we would mark our way through unfamiliar territory with whatever symbols or flagging or whatever we would use. We find it periodically through the crawlways in the cave, as well as a few areas where you can stand up and walk. The most notable one you might see is kind of a Z-shaped mark that was found on a wall, and my take on its significance is that either they were trying to do something with their torch, it wasn't working right, or they were trying to make it better and rubbing it against the rock, or this symbol has some meaning or significance. Some torch samples were removed from the cave and sent to a laboratory in Arizona to be carbon dated. And two different samples from two different places in the cave were aged around 1410 and 1435 AD.
Today, those entering the cave are struck in awe by the beauty of the world beneath the surface. The question remains as to whether or not the world beneath was considered a place of beauty to prehistoric explorers, or a dangerous realm only traveled by those with special knowledge of the supernatural.
This is Ivory Tower. This is the largest of the speleothems that are found in the cave. Speleothem being based on two Greek words, speleon and thema, which mean cave deposit. And that's what these are. This is mostly calcite with a few impurities. And this is roughly 22 feet tall. They don't get any bigger than this in this cave. One has to wonder what the prehistoric visitors thought of this.
Were the prehistoric explorers struck by the beauty of the cave, or was the danger too great? Perhaps the giant formations appeared menacing, illuminated solely by the flickering light of their small torches.
There is a lot of documentation of use of caves by bears to spend the winter. Obviously, it's a relatively warm temperature, away from the cold and the blizzards and so on. And they would spend much of the winter in caves. Now, they don't truly hibernate, but they have long periods of sleep. There's nothing else to do unless you get hungry. To help conserve heat, they would actually dig small pits in the floor, kind of rounded areas in the floor where they would curl up and find a comfortable place to sleep. There are at least 22 bear denning beds that have been documented.
You know, they were adults, obviously, and adult bears are going to range 200 pounds is a good female, and 600 pounds is a big male. So I'll hedge my bets and say they were somewhere in that range. They're very intelligent animals. They rank up there with primates as far as the size of their brain and their intelligence. I don't know what the ratio is of strength from a bear to a human, but the bears are extremely strong. They're athletic. They can run as fast as a horse. Bears aren't true hibernators. They don't, like for example, a groundhog, his heart rate will be really reduced. Well, bears don't do that, but they don't eat and they don't defecate and they don't drink while they're in so-called hibernation. But they also don't go into a really, really deep sleep and their body temperature doesn't go down. I mean, I've had people hold me by my ankles and drop me down into a cave or a crevice, you know, and I'm sitting there trying to dart the female and I'm thinking, man, don't drop me on top of her. This isn't going to be good. But they're just not that aggressive. But then again, you know, they have bad days too. I think it depends on the bear, but they could retaliate. I mean, you got them cornered.
Right behind me is a whole mud slope of bear tracks and human footprints, some toe marks. And as you can see, this cave is very muddy, slippery, wet in some areas. So it's difficult to get state-of-the-art equipment in here. We have not ventured up these mud slopes because we don't want to damage or fall, because once it's gone, then you know, we lose footprints, bear tracks, everything.
Examination and mapping of footprints in the mud enables the research team to determine where prehistoric people journeyed within the cave. Photographs and illustrations are made of footprints and toe marks for documentation. Careful study of the footprints can help determine whether the journeys into the world beneath was made by one individual or several.
There's a footprint right there, another footprint right there, another one right up there, another one right up there.
And you can see where they were sliding down the slope too. Over here you see the slide marks where they were coming down, and if you get close enough, you can see there's weathering in the slide marks. You can tell it happened a long time ago.
What I'm trying to do here is capture shadows, because there's so many different footprints on this slope with animals and humans kind of mixed together. And we're going to take separate flashes and shoot at different angles so that we can try to cast a shadow and kind of pop those up out of the ground. That way we can distinguish what is what and have a better idea of what else is going on here at the slope.
Pieces of the mystery begin to come together. So far, archaeologists have determined that approximately 600 years ago, a barefoot person or a number of people carrying torches ventured deep into this cave. They came to a muddy slope which appears to have been covered by bear tracks and climbed up to an area of the cave that archaeologists can't access without destroying archaeological evidence. Just what was going on atop that slope will have to remain a mystery for now, as archaeologists search for a way to see up there without destroying 600-year-old evidence. Fortunately, other areas of the cave offer additional clues as to what these young explorers were doing in the cave.
This is the tip of a stalagmite that has been broken by man. Now, since modern man hasn't come into this cave and vandalized it, we are pretty sure that this was broken by prehistoric people. The top of it is shaved off, and it hasn't had any additional speleothem growth on it. But we discovered this on one of our last visits to the cave. One of those things that in a passage full of speleothems, you may or may not be able to glance and see it.
So what we're looking at is a series of torch marks. Here, 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 here. There's extensive swiping. Now, When looking at these torch marks, it's really difficult to tell whether or not this was marked for a purpose, whether marking the passage, whether they were just trying to restoke the fire. We're really not sure why. However, due to its close proximity with the broken one and the fact that there's so much here indicating they spent a large amount of time here, it's fairly apparent that for whatever reason this drew their attention.
When we first observed the damage formation, we noticed that there were several torch swipes in a circular pattern and torch marks on the top. We were curious as to what was so interesting about this particular area. You can even see charcoal deposits on the ground. And the removal or mining of cave formation is not uncommon in the archaeological record. There are caves that they have found where formations were taken out. They've actually found them in excavation units in other caves that didn't have cave formations. They know they were mining. Why this far in, this particular formation, we don't know.
Making torch marks along the walls, venturing up muddy slopes covered in bear tracks, altering cave formations, and all the evidence incredibly well preserved. But as the evidence mounts, it seems only to lead to more questions. Was it one individual or more? Was it a single trip or multiple trips into the cave? And still the main question remains unanswered. Why leave the safety of the surface and venture down into the darkness? Perhaps a series of mysterious images carved into the hard limestone walls of the cave provide some answers. Next, archaeologists consult with Dr. Carol Diaz-Granados, a leading expert in Native American rock art and adopted member of the Osage Nation, as they attempt to gain insight from her interpretation of these carvings.
So in the New World, North, Central, and South America, there are variations on how the cosmos is viewed by American Indians. But basically, and I speak totally in generality here, it's upper, middle, and lower. And the upper encompasses the levels of the upper world, which would include, of course, the sky and the stars and the sun, and then lower down the creatures that fly, the birds, the eagles, hawks, and insects, and then you get to the middle world, which is humans, quadrupeds, creatures that occupy the middle world, and then the lower world, of course, would be the there's lower world caves and lower world water, so it's the creatures that occupy those two, and lower world soil. The image that I'm most impressed with is the crudely carved underwater spirit, and that underwater spirit is a very important icon in American Indian iconography. So I was really excited when you found that. I was really excited when you found that. The underwater spirit has attributes of the upper, middle, and lower world, which shows that it transcends all three levels of the cosmos. The image of the underwater spirit at the cave is very crudely rendered, so much so that when I first saw it, I didn't think it was anything until Craig sent me a bunch of different views, and then I began picking out the attributes. I mean, it's got the attributes. It's got the bifurcated tail that goes up and around over its head. This is very, very common. And it's got the hatch marks on its body, which is, again, a crude way of indicating scales. And it's got the antlers, which is for a small, simple little drawing. It really has a lot of the major attributes, which is really neat.
There are 3 other areas of the cave where rock art have been discovered. One could be a celestial body, perhaps the sun depicted in motion. The other are V-shaped carvings, which are still being studied and interpreted. There are mountain lion tracks, but no sign of human mountain lion interaction. There's the top of the human and bear track covered slope, which archaeologists can't access without destroying irreplaceable evidence. And there are many passages of the cave yet to be explored. From what is known at this point, do we know for certain what was going on deep within the Missouri cave 600 years ago.
We don't know for sure why they were in the cave. They may have been hunting for bear, they may have been hunting for chert to make implements out of. The chert in caves is of good quality, not weathered. Or they may have been interested in exploring, just as modern man is.
Yeah, they say that in Europe, I know they say that the further into the cave, the more sacred the symbol, just as a rule of thumb. But when it's placed in a dark zone of a cave, we're pretty sure that it is ultimately very, very sacred, very, very sacred.
It was not a cave people lived in. It was not a cave people visited very often. And we know this simply because of the meager amount of remains we found down there.
That's a really hard question to answer, because we never ever, we can guess at it, but we can never know the intent of the artist. But when we see a single image like that, not in conjunction with anything else, it's I wouldn't exactly say it's a good bet, but it's a possible bet that it's someone who has carved their guiding spirit. It's possible that they went in for a vision quest into the cave and spent several days in the cave waiting to receive their guiding spirit and vision, their vision, and that maybe it was the underwater spirit.
The name and location of this Missouri cave are tightly guarded secrets. Access is granted solely to professional researchers, and even then, only to those able to pass the strict scrutiny of a panel charged with protecting the cave. The research must be worthwhile. The researchers must be trained in rappelling and rope safety. And above all, their activities must cause no harm to the cave and its archaeological features. Scientists from the University of Kentucky were the latest research team guided down into the cave.
What we were trying to do is come up with a way to record footprints and rock art using some sort of scan technology, if possible, if it's available, something that could give us more than just a photograph. We contacted a group from the University of Kentucky. They are the Structured Light Illumination